Hey Miraculous fans, Crystal here, and today I have just watched Revelator. So there's some big developments in this episode that I will get to, but I'm gonna go back and start with the first scene because that's one that I've known about for a while. I think I saw a clip of it a while back because, as you know, I'm watching these a bit late, unfortunately. I'm looking forward to when I get fully caught up and then I won't have any spoilers. But yeah, the first scene was interesting. It was a nice setup. They were practicing not de-transforming because we know Ladybug and Cat Noir learned not to in that episode near the end of season 5. And it's nice that the writers remembered and made a point to show that, hey, we need to make sure the rest of the heroes are established that they can resist it as well. But the other interesting thing about that scene, actually, I just thought of two interesting things. One, so they all had little barriers around themselves so they couldn't see each other as they were de-transforming. And that's all well and good as long as they're all facing the right way. But Ladybug and Cat Noir were standing in front facing all of them. So does that mean if he doesn't already know, like, does Cat Noir know who all of them are? Because if he didn't already know, well, from where he was standing, surely he would have seen them, or at least the front row, based on that angle. So does Cat Noir know everyone on the team? That would be fine, I guess. I wouldn't be mad if she decided to tell him all of them. They are just the B team, and I wouldn't care if, he knows everyone except Ladybug, because the whole point is that the Ladybug and Cat Miraculous holders can't know who each other are, because otherwise it would only take one of them to get both of the most powerful Miraculouses. But yeah, but the other interesting thing is that at the end of that scene, they come up with a team name, the Miraculous. This in itself is not a problem. It is interesting. I've seen people point out that the fans had already been using that name, not so much for the team, but maybe for the fan base. So some people are saying it feels like the writers just copied what the fans were already using. But there is one issue with that moment, although I already brought it up in my previous video, which was for the episode Daddy Cop. In that review, I mentioned two little inconsistencies with the episode order. One of them was when Rose mentioned Aglaé when we hadn't been introduced to her. That one's more forgivable because I know she is introduced in Climatiqueen, which is labelled episode 1. It's just in the release order, it hadn't been released yet as of Daddy Cop. But the other one was that Sabrina used this team name, the Miraculous. That inconsistency is different from the Aglaé one and even worse because it's not a case of the release order being messed up. It's not like, oh, if you'd watched them in number order, you would have known that team name. No, because that team name was not invented in episode 1 or anything. This is episode 11. So why was Sabrina using the term Miraculous in Daddy Cop, which I believe was episode 5 or 6? I'm getting them mixed up now. Or maybe it was 4. Sorry, guys, I don't have the numbers in front of me. Oops. But my point stands, it was like 4, 5, or 6. And she used that name, but they don't come up with it until this episode, which is 11. Sorry to rehash my point from last time, but I thought I'd bring it up again because watching this just reminded me and solidified, hey, this is when they come up with the team name, and this is labeled episode 11. So, yeah. But moving on to the actual episode, it very much centers around truth and secrets, and not just because of that one important moment that everyone was talking about, but I like that even without the Akuma drama, it's still the theme of the rest of the episode too. Like even before that stuff started happening, we had that nice scene on the beach where she was talking to Alya. Alya was wishing that she could tell her viewers more about the superheroes, like what it's like to be a hero and what they go through with their training. Which made me think, why can't you? And like, and Marinette was like, yeah, but if you tell that stuff from a first-hand perspective, they'll make the connection that you are one of the heroes. Well, no, what if she just staged an interview with herself, sort of like how Clark Kent is always getting interviews with Superman? Or better yet, instead of doing that, where Alya interviews Rena Rouge, supposedly, she could just be herself as Alya, pretend she's not Rena Rouge, and interview one of the many other heroes on the team. Then people would be a lot less likely to make the connection, especially because even before Alya ever got a Miraculous, she was already established as an aspiring reporter who did get interviews with Ladybug a few times. Why doesn't she just, have another interview with Ladybug or with one of the other side heroes if she wants their perspective as one of the heroes in training? But that's just a small note. That was, but the other drama of the episode was, the whole drama with the perception of Adrian and Marinette. We saw it even before Vincent took over. We saw on the beach people started talking to Adrian because he's so famous. And, you can tell some of them meant well. Like one of them just said, "My condolences," because of his dad. But still, Adrian doesn't want to be famous. But he really doesn't want the crazed fans. Some of them might have meant well, but it's still, he's better off without them. But then Vincent comes along and he's just telling outright lies. I won't get too into it, but a small detail that I picked up on was that in one of his videos, he mentioned he was sponsored by the Tsurugi name, which is really interesting because Mrs. Tsurugi is not in the clear. And interestingly, I wouldn't be surprised if Mrs. Tsurugi is working with Lila, Chrysalis, whatever you want to call her, especially because Mrs. Tsurugi knows the truth. She knows Gabriel was Monarch. I think I mentioned this in my review of the London special, because Ladybug and Kagami talked about this. Mrs. Tsurugi knows the truth, and at any point she could choose to expose the truth, and therefore expose Ladybug as a liar. But she probably chooses not to, because if she did, Ladybug would expose her involvement in it. But it's just interesting that she decided to sponsor Vincent, who is saying these things about Marinette and about Adrian and all this stuff. Maybe because part of the story he was spreading, he did mention part of Adrian's perfect life was his so-called perfect girlfriend Kagami, and maybe Mrs. Tsurugi is mad that they couldn't get Adrian and Kagami to be together, but that's beside the point. I'm rambling, and I know what you guys want me to get to. But I did like the other characters' involvement in it. Like Marinette's parents were very responsible about this, and Alya. She was the one who told both Marinette and Adrian that they were being rather naive. Like when she said, "Oh, I'll just sit down with Vincent and we'll just talk about it and get him the full story." And it's like Vincent doesn't want the full story. He's not mistaken. He's making it up. Like Adrian and Marinette were too naive and they thought, oh, he's just mistaken, we'll just talk to him. And everyone, Alya and Marinette's parents were like, no, this is not gonna go well. The only character whose reaction I didn't quite like, it even felt a bit out of character, was when Adrian was watching those videos. Plag was actually kind of over dramatic to the point where it felt a bit out of character. Like, I feel like the old Plag would have said something like, who cares what they think, or, it'll blow over. But instead, he got really serious and he was like, yeah, this isn't okay. I mean, I get that Plag is rational sometimes, but just I wasn't expecting him to respond like that, Maybe he's trying to be more responsible now that Adrian doesn't have as much around to protect him. Like, he's noticed Adrian's a bit naive. I don't know, but that just didn't feel quite like Plag. But moving on, I did like Alya was like the smartest person in this episode, the way she tricked Vincent and all that, and just got him to admit how, when she was like, well, how did you know that stuff? And he's like, I didn't know. I made it up. Because I'm just telling people what they want to hear. But moving on, the real action starts with the Akuma, whose power was to expose somebody's biggest secret. Which I get that they needed a reason for Alya to find out what she finds out. But when he first transformed, and I remembered and I realized that was his power, for a second I thought, especially when he said something like, now no one will be able to hide the truth, I was like, isn't that the opposite of what he wants? Like, truth is bad for him. I feel like with the story up to that point, Vincent would want a power more like, oh, what was it when Lila it was a season 5 episode where Lila had it, where she could make stuff up and like everyone believed it. Like when she said Marinette is monarch, everybody believes it. I feel like that power would have made more sense for him given the rest of what happened up to that point. Because like if there's no secrets, truth is kind of bad for him. But okay, nobody has any secrets. He wants to expose everybody's secrets because that might be good for him. Which leads to the part that everybody was talking about when this episode came out. And yeah, it is one of the few things that I had spoiled. I knew it was coming. Unfortunately, these past few episodes, I had been spoiled on some stuff. As I said, once I get caught up, then I'll have no more spoilers, and I will avoid spoilers because I'll watch the episodes immediately when they come out. But yeah, so when he touched Ladybug, Cat Noir assumed that her secret would just be her identity, which his was. His biggest secret was just his identity. But her secret, of course, was that she's the only one, not the only one, but one of the few people who knows that that Adrian's dad was Monarch. And Alya picks up the ball. Because I guess she also assumed that all she would see was that Marinette is Ladybug, which she already knew that. She saw it, and then she pulled her aside to have a private conversation. And this is the scene that really divided the fandom. It wasn't too divided, because I feel like so much of the conversation was on Alya's side. There was so much Ladybug bashing I remember seeing when this episode was first released. Everyone was siding with Alya, yeah, she's right. You're right to yell at her like that because, you know, she needs to be held accountable for this mistake of hiding this secret. Like, how long does she expect it to go on? Alya was mad because she thought they were no longer keeping any secrets. But here's the thing. You guys are probably wondering what side I'm on. What's my perspective? And that is... Sorry, guys, I'm pretty neutral on this, actually. Okay, when I say I'm neutral, what I mean is I kind of see both sides. On one hand, yeah, Alya's right that when she says, and by the way, the voice actress did a phenomenal job in that scene, when she was saying, you know, you don't get to decide what Adrian does or doesn't get to know. It's his truth. And it's true. At some point, Adrian needs to find out and get that chance to process that truth. She's right, of course, and as I said, I think I said this in my review of the London special, I went over that and said, yeah, I think at some point she needs to tell him, because the longer she waits to tell him, it's probably going to hit him even harder. She maybe thinks that if she waits, it might not be as bad as if she told him immediately, and maybe that's a little bit true. If she had told him, like, we saw that scene where she told him that his father is gone, and he was breaking down just from that. If she had told him that his father was gone and was also the villain that they'd been fighting for that long, it would have destroyed him. So I do see why you wouldn't want to tell that part right away. Tell it in pieces over some time to make it easier to process. That being said, I think it's been long enough that, like, I'm with Alya. He does need to know. But I'm not totally with Alya because I'm not going to be one of those Ladybug bashing fans who are like, yeah, she's almost a villain at this point. Because here's the thing. Marinette is a freaking child. Like, I'm not saying, oh, she's a child, like I'm calling her immature. No, I'm saying she's literally a child. She is still maturing. She's gonna make bad decisions. But you know who is the adult in this situation? I might have mentioned this in the London special as well. You know who the adult in this situation is? Natalie. Because she also agreed to go along with this lie. She could have, like, okay, I guess she wanted to leave that decision up to Marinette for some reason. But, like, back then in the London special, she could have said to her, yeah, we won't tell him right away, but we need to talk about this over time and figure out when and how we're going to tell him. Because Natalie, being the adult in this situation, even though we didn't see her at all in this episode, she really should be figuring out how to handle this better. Because, yeah, the whole situation, it's a mess, and I'm just saying, I'm not going to blame Marinette the way some fans are. Like, that's what I'm saying when I say I'm pretty neutral. It's like, Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to see both sides here. Like, you can see, especially in this episode, but a few other episodes, whenever it comes up, you can see how conflicted Marinette is with all this. It's like she's trying to tell herself and convince herself that she's doing the right thing here. Like, you can see how messed up she was when we saw her say to herself again today, the best kept secrets are the ones you don't tell, and, Adrian's better off not knowing. It's like she's trying to convince herself because she just can't handle the pressure of this secret, but she feels like she won't be able to handle the repercussions of telling him either. There's a lot of moments, a lot of good moments where you can see how much this is weighing on her. For one thing, I did notice when she captured the Akuma, normally when she goes, oh, no more evil doing for you and gotcha, she sounds the same, almost like they reuse voice clips, which I don't know if they reuse it or they re-record it every time, but they definitely re-recorded it this time, because she sounded very different emotionally, which is a good thing.
Time to de-evilize! Gotcha. Bye-bye, little butterfly. Miraculous ladybug!
And there was a nice parallel between the two beach scenes. I mentioned the one way earlier, and then at the end we got another scene on the beach where you can see how much it's weighing on her when she was like, yeah, but you'd hate me if you knew everything. And Alya's like, well, Alya doesn't know. And she's like, no matter what you tell me, I would never get mad. And Marinette just has to sit there knowing that Alya's not being truthful. I mean, not on purpose, but she knows that if Alya found out, well, now she has seen Alya's reaction. Which I kind of skipped over, is that Cat Noir now has a new ability. The ability to erase memories, I guess. Well, it ties into his destruction thing. I guess it's like, it's a very concentrated form of cataclysm where he has to really concentrate probably in order to target exactly what he wants to destroy, which he must have been focusing on. All he wanted to destroy was the last 5 minutes of Alya's memory. And he never even knew what exactly he was making her forget, because he assumed that she found out Ladybug's identity, and Ladybug is not okay with her knowing that. So he didn't even know what memories he was destroying exactly. It's more just maybe he was able to think to himself, okay, the last 5 minutes of memory and that's it. It's I'm wondering, this opens up a lot of doors of if he'll ever use this ability again and what for. I feel like I saw one comment talking about this episode that suggested, what if when he eventually finds out his dad was Monarch, that he transforms and uses that on himself because he can't handle it and he wants to forget, which that could be a kind of interesting. I don't know if that's what they'll do, but that was a very interesting idea, and I'm all for it. But I think that about covers everything I had in mind in this episode. I feel like this review was just kind of a jumble of thoughts here and there. I try to keep these reviews kind of structured, but it's not easy to do that because, of course, they're not scripted. I just watched the episode, and then I just start recording whatever my initial thoughts were. As for whether I liked this episode, it's hard to say because it did feel very different to the last few that I watched. I haven't even done that thing where I say what made me laugh because there was no laugh during this episode. I will say that. Almost all of the previous ones I was able to say in a review, here's the one part that made me laugh out loud. And I can't do that this time. Well, does that mean the episode was bad? No, it doesn't. It's just that it wasn't as light-hearted. The show's trying to be a bit more serious. And that's okay. It's okay if it wants to be serious sometimes. It just needs to do it well, and I think it did it well enough. It's just that some things could have maybe been done a bit better. Or some parts like maybe weren't as necessary, or I don't know, or like some parts could have been improved. I'm not sure. One thing that might not have been needed was we did get a scene where we saw presumably Lila at the end. And she was writing stuff down as she always does recently. And I feel like that whole scene could have just not been there. Like, I don't think she really said much that really added to anything. But, you know, I guess the only thing that scene added was just the reminder that, you know, she's still there pulling the strings behind the scenes. Especially, you could even say that, you know, if Lila is working with Mrs. Tsurugi, then Lila could have even possibly been influencing Vincent, which maybe it was her idea for him to target Marinette and make her in particular look bad. Because obviously she hates Marinette as well as Ladybug, who I'm pretty sure she doesn't know they're the same person. So yeah, it's fun to figure out how Lila ties into all this stuff. I've seen people say season 6 is basically a game of spot Lila, or like people are always picking out which characters might be connected to Lila in some way. And I see why. Like, but with that being said, I think that's pretty much all my thoughts for this episode. It was pretty much a jumble of thoughts. I'm glad I watched the episode. It's just that there's not much that really stuck out to me. Because I don't have that much to contribute to the whole debate of like, because the thing that stuck out to most people when this episode released was the debate of the argument between Alya and Marinette, which I guess I don't have much to contribute there other than what I've already said, which is that I see both sides. Alya's kind of right, but you know, I'm not blaming Marinette for her decision. It's kind of valid as well. So the next episode that I'll be watching will finally be officially episode 1, Climatiqueen, because of the stupid release order. But I've already gone over that. So with that being said, I'll see you next time for more Miraculous and other things as well. See you next time, guys.